you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Let's see if they can hear me. Can they hear me? If not, I'll pop back in and pop back out. But you are watching. Yup, they can. Thanks for that. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit Big Show today. Got a lot to go over. If Laura would stop feeding that back to us. All right. Of course, consider joining us at Locals, people'spundit.locals.com. There were actually, you guys know how this works. Is an API. Little things trickle in. It was a little bit more vote from Northern Virginia, so you may see a little bit of a change in the sample, but it's not worth changing the graphics for the result of the poll. It's just not. Oh, Don, don't worry, buddy. Going to go ahead and invite you now. We're going to have Don Smith on in the second hour after we get through all of these numbers, but the bottom line is here, again, even though this was supposed to be, this should have helped McAuliffe a bit, it didn't. All right, so let's just get into it. Virginia. All right, there's an election on Tuesday. Virginia is one of the very few states that decided that it was going to move to the left during the era of Trump, whereas the Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio, and the Mid-Atlantic of Pennsylvania, Florida, in the Southeast, moved to Republicans. All right, I'm talking about voter files, voter file analysis models, et cetera, et cetera. Even with an increased electorate, those states were still extremely competitive, even though Barack Obama won them handily over Mitt Romney, and George W. Bush failed to carry any of those states in both his reelection bids, except for Iowa. Mm-hmm. And he did get Iowa. And Ohio was very close, but Trump obviously expanded the Republican edge in those states. Recent poll actually out by... I think it was Civics, maybe somebody, but it was of Iowa and actually showed a 14-point lead for Donald Trump. He won Iowa by nearly 10 points, but you may remember that there was no poll outside of People's Pundit who was polling for the Epoch Times, who showed that kind of a margin in either Iowa or Ohio. In fact, there were polls that showed Biden leading in Iowa, which was, of course, crazy. All right, so we're going to look again. It did change the number. It did change certain things, but it did not change the overall result. It did not change the margin. We started with Creative Destruction Media, creativedestruction.com, cdm.press, and we've been polling this race for now about 2 weeks. Afterward, I wanted to continue with the locals community because we've had outstanding growth. I wanted to give something back. Plus, to be fair, I wanted to continue to poll because I thought I saw something at the end of polling for CD Media that we may not have caught. And that was, I basically confirmed my suspicions here. All right, so let's get the let's get the vote preference up. Is this vote preference by party? Let's see, I want vote preference by party first. All right, here we go. Yep, here's vote preference with leaners by party. And actually, oh my God, Laura, it didn't help Terry McAuliffe those because he was at 46 points. I know you don't care, but he was at 46.6%. I'll go look. It may have just helped someone else. I'm not kidding. But in any event, Terry McAuliffe is now at 46.5 with what trickled in late after we were done putting out what we put out and getting the graphics done for the show today. All right, but Glenn Youngkin remained at 49.5. Look, it's marginal, the overlap. I'm noticing our Republican crossover, we're talking about tens of percentage points, decimal format here, but I'm noticing our Republican crossover is slightly, and I mean slightly, more than Democratic crossover. Whereas in the Fox poll, I believe the Emerson poll that came out Friday, or yesterday, and the Suffolk poll, I believe they showed about a point more Democratic crossover than Republican crossover. Either way, it's very marginal. We're talking about 4.7 versus 5.5, well within the sampling area. It's a wash in our polling, okay? So base crossover is basically a wash. What isn't, we have to pay attention to. And if you don't have the crosstabs, here, I might as well share them now with everybody. I'm going to put them in the comment section right now. And Rumble, you won't get it. I'll have to get final cross. I'm going to do, okay? Rumble, I'll have to give this to you separately. Unless, Laura, can you do that? Can you do that in the Rumble chat? Also throw it in the locals chat just in case anyone from locals didn't see it. All right, cool.
Did you shoot it?
That just went out to YouTube. It's going out to YouTube now. It takes some time. YouTube got it. Facebook got it. Sorry, if you're watching this on Twitter, you will have to go to one of the others or just wait and I'll tweet it in a bit. All right. But it's fun to follow along, isn't it? All right. What's notable here is that independent margin. We do independence and independence other. Oh my God. It's actually higher now. 53.6 is what we have in the very, very latest. 36.2. It will not update again. This is it. This is a wrap. 36.2 is what we have for Terry McAuliffe on the latest. But here in the graphic from last night, 52.1 to 39.1. Big deal, and I'm going to tell you why. All right? Joe Biden won independents in the state of Virginia overwhelmingly. He carried them 57 to 38, nearly a 20-point margin. This same group of voters now disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing, okay? 64%. He is at 33% approval among independents. They are largely undecided. They are largely the most undecided remaining vote left, and it appears from that trickle they continue to go for Youngkin. They are not that undecided on Joe Biden. Only 2.5% of independent and other third-party voters are undecided on the job that Joe Biden is doing as president. We have almost no one on the Republican side undecided. Everyone has an opinion about Joe Biden in the state of Virginia if you are Republican. All right? So it's important to note. They're saying they're still undecided about the gubernatorial election, but they are not undecided about how they feel about Joe Biden. That's a bad sign for the president and his party. All right, we saw this with Donald Trump, and it didn't work. We saw it with Barack Obama. This happens You know, I was on this show yesterday, and I was the crosstalk guy. There was a Democratic strategist, a Republican strategist, and I was on a panel as just a pollster. All right, and I'm listening to pom-poms are swinging on this side, pom-poms are swinging on that side. And the truth of the matter is, as both strategists for each party should know, is that if Biden passes his agenda, no, it's not going to really help him in the midterms. And at the same time, on the Republican side, don't mistake this as an affirmation of you. Okay? This is history. It looks like Virginia is going to do what Virginia always does or has done for many decades, which is vote for the governor that is of the party, the gubernatorial candidate that is of the party that is not in the White House. I was a little bit on the fence because the Old Dominion is not the Old Dominion anymore. It's the New Dominion. And Democrats are much more rigid with their voting behavior than Republicans and independents are. That's just a fact in this day. All right, so if it was a reverse version of Alabama, Democrats still would have voted for Roy Moore. But what we're seeing here is that Democrats are just not enough. They are voting for their candidate, Terry McAuliffe. They don't care about some of the comments he made for education. Will he lose some of them because of it? Sure. But Terry McAuliffe is down in our polling because the very same group of voters that voted for Joe Biden by nearly a 10-point margin are now going for Glenn Youngkin by at least 13 points. And now it looks like I said, let me give you the most latest. It is, I'm going to have to redo these graphics for later shows because they're updated. Yeah, it's going to be the latest is 53.6 or 54 to 30. So we're looking at an almost 20-point margin. They swung almost 40 points, a net swing of 40 points from the Democrat to the Republican. Or I should do that differently. Left, Democrat, Republican. Ralph Northam lost independents to Ed Gillespie in 2017. But he lost them by a marginal fraction of the vote. The exit poll showed a 3-point edge among independents for Ed Gillespie. But there's a sampling error in exit polling, just like there's a sampling error in regular polling. And it could be that it was marginal, meaning within the sampling error and not really that statistically significant. All right. What happened in 2017 is that Ralph Northam enjoyed a Democratic edge in the electorate, D+6 or D+8, depending whether you're looking at the exit polls or voter file analysis models. All right, by like Fox and AP, who use voter analysis. That's not going to happen on Tuesday, folks. I mean, if it does, I don't know what I'll do to admit I'm wrong, but I'll admit I was wrong. But we're looking at a D+2 here at the most, and a very strong possibility it's D+ nothing. I think they held on in the latest, and I can show you guys this. You'll be able to see how the sampling went over time here. Let me share it. I'll share it with you so you guys can see, and then you can see the latest sampling representations. All right? Let's go to my handy-dandy Google spreadsheet where I logged that all. Okay? And it started as CD Media, so it'll say CD Media. But the very last column is locals. All right, so Republicans are 34.3%. Democrats are 35.5%. So, yeah, it's still D+2. If you were looking at exit polls and they rounded, it would be 36-34. The problem Democrats have is this number right here and these numbers, especially the other. The other third-party vote is a very important group, even though it's 5 to 7%, depending on what state you're in. All right. This is the group of voters that the media told you would not vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and that is why Donald Trump won. Had they just voted, Jill Stein ruined everything. What's his name? Gary Johnson ruined everything. And that this time they came back to Biden. Okay, so this group is overwhelmingly anti-Democrat in this election cycle. They have been for a while, and if we do party detail, Glenn Youngkin is carrying 64% of the third-party vote. It's incredible. It's a big, big shift. And among regular independents, Glenn Youngkin's lead is 50.1 to 43.7. All right. It's a big difference, guys. I do want to show you, though, the power of this education issue. The bottom line here, and you guys can look at how the rest of these are sampled. That's what it came out to be. That's the conservative. They've held flat. All right, the percentage of the sample that is conservative is 35.9. That is in danger territory for Terry McAuliffe. They would really rather it be around 30 or 32, like Ralph Northam had, a more liberal electorate. They're going to get about 24% liberal, 40% moderate, and somewhere in the mid-30s conservative. All right, whites are voting at a little bit a higher rate. So normally I would, when I poll Virginia, it's usually 67 to 70% white. This is at the high end of white. It is more Republican and more conservative, but there's still going to be 20% of the vote is going to be African American. Glenn Youngkin is just doing exceedingly well with them. And we did find what Emerson found with Hispanics now. That margin is almost nothing. Ralph Northam carried Hispanics in 2017 over Ed Gillespie, 67 to 32. Now, Hispanics are a very small share of the electorate in Virginia, 4%. But elections are won on margins. That other group at the bottom, you see Asian, American Indian, Native American Indian / Alaskan Native, I think. Native Hawaiian / Pacific Islander. Very small shares of the electorate in Virginia. That other category is about 2% or so, and actually Glenn Youngkin is winning that category. Asians are going to McAuliffe significantly. They are becoming among the Democrats' strongest voting group. All right. The D.C. suburbs are about 30% of the sample, 29.5. Central Virginia, 16.4. Hampton Roads, 15.8. Richmond South Side, 17.8. And the Mountain Region, 20.5. We did this. To keep you as least for the least confusion as possible. This is how region is broken down in exit polling. And we'll give you area too, but we don't weight by area type. All right, not necessarily. If you weight by region correctly, you won't have to wait for the suburbs or the rural areas. I mean, people self-report that stuff. So you really, some people think maybe they live in a rural area, they live in a suburb. Some people think they live in a suburb and they're in a rural area. I mean, yeah.
They don't know their.
A lot of people. That's right.
The outline.
And a lot of people tell us that they are not, that they're suburban, even though they're, or vice versa. A lot of people tell us they're urban, even though they're in a metro suburb. So we do not wait for area type like that. The first congressional district, which is represented by Rob Whitman, is about 10%, 10.1. The second congressional district, which is represented by Elaine Luria, is about 8.5%. That's a Democrat. Another Democrat, Bobby Scott, in the 3rd district, 8.2%. In the 4th district, Donald McEachin, 8.7%. In the 5th district, Bob Good. He's been around for a long time. Republican, 5th district, 9.2%. In the 6th district, Ben Klein, 9.2%. Abigail Spanberger in the most swingy district in the state, 10.7% of the vote. It's a large district. Don Bayer is a Democrat, 8.4%, 7.9% for Morgan Griffith. Jennifer Wexton is a Democrat. It's a big Democratic district, 10.4%. They're going to, McAuliffe will need a sizable margin out of the 10th, which is looking closer than recent gubernatorial elections between Northam or even McAuliffe the first time. The 10th congressional district, Joe Biden did carry. The Democrat carried it by about 12 points. Abigail Spanberger barely won re-election, 2 points. The theme you're going to have to keep in mind here, and why everything is so close, is that Democrats have seen, since Joe Biden was inaugurated until now, Democrats have seen roughly a 10-point swing away from them. And now that actually grew a little bit. We're coming up on like 13 now. Why does that matter? Because that's the margin they have. That should be their margin of victory. In Joe Biden's case, in Ralph Northam's case. McAuliffe versus Cuccinelli was a close race. If you guys don't remember, it was about 2.5-point race. Cuccinelli damn near won that race, even though he spent nothing, and all of the polls had McAuliffe leading overwhelmingly. It was not supposed to be a 2.5-point race. Cuccinelli wound up doing better in Loudoun County than expected, lost it by about 5. The margins are such in this race because Youngkin is doing better in some areas where Cuccinelli did not, Hampton Roads, Richmond. If Youngkin were to do as good as Cuccinelli in Loudoun County, Youngkin's going to win. Mm-hmm. All right, if he comes within 5 to 8 points, Youngkin's going to win. That is how Democrats took the state of Virginia. Fairfax is going to go 75-25 or more for Democrats. They need a big population center in the D.C. suburbs like Loudoun County to help offset that, while the rest of the state, generally speaking, puts them over the top. That is the Republican path to victory. Here, as we will see, Youngkin is doing slightly better than Ken Cuccinelli did in the broad region DC suburbs. I saw Chuck Todd do actually a really good presentation the other day about how Youngkin could win this thing. And he can win it, he said, if he was to match Cuccinelli in the suburbs, because his other, margins are so. I actually completely agree with that assessment. Here's the thing. He may do better than 41%. Youngkin may do 43%. If this continues. I do want to say something, though, really quick before we move on, because I know people are... And yes, I'll make that spreadsheet available to you guys, okay? So everybody can get an idea of the representation in the sample, all right? I'd like to, go over the Fox News poll. Hat tip New York Post, hat tip New York Post. This is your graphic, all right? I just want to say that there are some things in the Fox News poll that I would say is, look, if you're going to call it out one way, you've got to call it out the other. This reminds me of Fox News polling when it was McAuliffe versus Cuccinelli, and they overstated McAuliffe's lead. This is akin to that. There are some weird things going on in the age groups. I don't know why you wouldn't give all age groups. Maybe they saw what we saw, and they frankly didn't want to show it. They just gave an NA instead of the actual margin. There are weird things going on. That's why we break 18 to 24, 25 to 29. For some reason, the 18 to 24 is not as liberal as it has been in the past. The 25 to 29 is slightly more liberal, but it's marginal because that's actually usually the smaller group in most states, but in the case of Virginia, it's not. So that helps Youngkin as well. Once we get to 40 and above, McAuliffe loses the lead. 40 to 49 is, and I can just give you some of those. I can give them right now. Let's go to age. 18 to 29, actually, we have pretty darn close. Glenn Youngkin's probably touching 40. He's probably touching the 40% there. And that's just, no Democrat can do that. And why are these margins like that? 2 reasons. The electorate is looking more conservative, so it will favor Youngkin if this continues. But also this independent and third-party margin. These are the same voters. I'm going to keep hammering this. These are the same voters who voted for Joe Biden by nearly 20 points. It's a likely voter model. We know how they voted in 2020. It's actually a little bit more Biden than the actual result. I think it's like 43.5 for Trump, 55 whatever for Biden. And it was 54-44. So this is mind-changing. It's not just, what's the word I'm looking? It's not just turnout. I mean, turnout matters. Yes, it does. But McAuliffe needs the larger registered voter universe. I do agree with the Fox pollster. In the registered voter universe, they still have Youngkin up by 1. We did not, look, enthusiasm doesn't impact our voting model. We can go over enthusiasm in a bit, but like our likely voter model, I give you the broad strokes of it, is certainty to vote or already voted, and then greater than 50-50. They get their appropriate percentage, and then they have to have voted in certain elections. There is a way for I've never voted before to end up in our likely voter model, but it's going to be a much smaller. It's going to be much smaller than it would be for a general election, like a presidential general election. Sorry, I'm looking. Yeah, I can do that. Sure. It's going to be because you just don't see new voters that much in these off-cycle midterm elections. They can be there, and they are there. But when we went back and looked, McAuliffe's lead in the raw data, which was not big at all. I mean, it came actually, Youngkin caught up right at the end there, was almost exclusively driven by people who said they have never voted before and are likely to vote, meaning the odds are greater than 50-50. It's just not a good place for McAuliffe to be in. He can pull it off. He can, but he would need what Darren Shaw said, which is just like a massive get out the vote at this point. I mean, and I'm not saying, one way or the other. McAuliffe can win. He can. It's within the sampling error in the poll, but it's becoming clear that Youngkin has the momentum, and in the final days of a campaign, it's more likely that you miss a surge, or not that you miss the surge itself, you miss the totality of the surge, than it is for a candidate to blunt it and go away. So what would I say it is right now? I don't know, 70-30. I don't care. I don't do predict it. I would put it at like 70-30 at this point. It's a Youngkin edge. All right. Once we get to 18 to 24, Youngkin's at like 35% of that vote, and McAuliffe is very low. Someone else, that group of voters, is going to vote for what's her name, Princess or whatever. I'm serious. Now, he's not going to get a huge amount of the vote, maybe 4% max. But that's coming from younger voters who are like, I don't really like Terry McAuliffe. I don't really like him. McAuliffe's lead among 25 to 29 is also not big, because Youngkin is in the low to mid 40s. And it's a sampling error, has a higher individual, subgroups have a higher sampling error. So it's about 6.6, I believe. So, of course, it could swing either way. If Youngkin ended up with 38%, it wouldn't be a shocker. Instead of, 44 or 42, it wouldn't be a shocker because it's in that realm. But overall, the picture becomes really clear when you leave the 30 to 39 bracket. McAuliffe leads 30 to 39 age group, 57.7 to 39.9. But then we get into 40 to 49. Youngkin leads 50.8 to 47.2. 50 to 64, which is the big swing in age group, guys. This is the 45 to 64 overall is Virginia's swing vote. Seniors they don't even go that much usually for the Republicans, but they typically go Republican 65 plus. But the 45 to 64 age group is the swing vote in Virginia. Say it again. The 45 to 64 age group is the swing vote in Virginia.
But what?
And they are going for Youngkin right now. 50 to 64 is going for Youngkin 54.6 to 40.4. If we look just at that 45 to 64 that I was just hammering as the swing vote in Virginia, they are going for Youngkin 52.9 to 42.7. Seniors are going for Youngkin 52.5 to 47.1. Not a respectable lead, but not huge. Youngkin's lead is coming from those who are older than 39 years old and are working. That's another thing that's interesting. And are getting ready to retire and are retired. All right. And then parental status is going to blow your socks off, because it's like the revenge of the protective fathers. I have to show you this. I'm serious. I have to show you this. But we'll get into that in a second. Yeah, the bottom line is that swing vote is swinging to Youngkin. So that is going to be... Terry McAuliffe would need a bigger turnout among younger people to offset that, okay? And right now, he's not getting it. All right. By employment status. Employed working full-time, 54.8 for Youngkin to 41.4 for McAuliffe. Employed working part-time, 53.5 to McAuliffe, 44.5 to Youngkin. Unemployed but looking is like a 40-point margin for McAuliffe. Unemployed but not looking, which is interesting. Youngkin has a 5-point lead with this group, which is typically a Democratic group, as is disabled. And they are only 5-point swinging to McAuliffe. Students are basically, I don't like either one of these guys. They're going for McAuliffe, but they're just not going for him by a huge margin. They are writing in someone or voting for Princess by a larger than expected amount, which hurts McAuliffe.
Mm-hmm.
So, as opposed to a 1 point, vote share, someone else right in could get a combined 3 to 4 points. It's not good for Terry McAuliffe. Retired are going for Youngkin 50.4 to 48.3. Okay, now let's get to marital, where I will pop this puppy up on the screen. Overall, all right, and I know it did shift a little bit, so I'm trying to give it to you on StreamYard. Okay. Overall, this is the way it was last night. Let's show it. Boom. Okay. Overall, last night it was Youngkin leading, McAuliffe among parents with children all 18 or over, 51.6 to 45.3. Let's see if that has changed much. What did I just say? 53.3 to 44.7 is what it is. Oh no, 54.3 to 43.4 is what it is now. So still very close. If Terry McAuliffe fell. This is important because that first group who has voters over the age of 18 are typically the more conservative parental status. All right. Parents who have one or more school children under 18 and parents who have one or all children under 18 but not yet school aged are not as conservative as parents who have kids who are no longer children, 18 or older. Mm-hmm. All right. This is very different here, and this is the power of the education issue in this race. Youngkin leads McAuliffe among parents with children that are school-aged under 18, he did last night, 54.9 to 39.2. And as of this morning, it is now, I can't give that much. It is now, let's go back to parental. Yeah, there we go. It is now 52.4 to 40 flat. Okay, that is normally a little bit, it's a little bit closer. But look at the gender gap in that crosstab I sent out on locals today. Yeah. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Look at men who have, one or more school-aged children under the age of 18. The gender gap is huge. 60, and by the way, Fox News found this too. Even in their article, they said Youngkin can thank men. Females are not that, they're usual, slightly from McAuliffe. But now with men being so lopsided, greater than 30 points, it's 66.6% of men who have school-age children under the age of 18 are voting for Youngkin. Only 29.4 are voting for Terry McAuliffe. That is a very similar margin to what Fox News found. It is real. There's just no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And then you can see it if you look at the other category. And here, is it up? Yeah. You can see it in the yes, one or all under 18, but not yet school-aged. Men are actually fairly tight, and that's usually a liberal category. That's what came in last night. It's now 48.4 men for Youngkin, 46.8 for Terry McAuliffe, but females are now 28.7 for Youngkin, 68.5 for McAuliffe. So he fell quite a bit among that group. Youngkin did, but he made it up along with the men that he got. Mm-hmm. Right, and then no is very close. Right, so it goes. That's a liberal group, and it's no shocker that it's going to Terry McAuliffe. But it's only going to McAuliffe by 7. So Youngkin is dominating amongst parents, and he's only losing non-parents by 5 to 7 points. It's just not good enough for Terry McAuliffe. Those are Democratic dominant groups, folks. He should be cleaning house with that demographic. Yes. Cleaning house, and he's not. So you have people who aren't parents worried about the economy, worried about inflation. Mm-hmm. And then you have parents who are worried about public education. This is the whole deal with this race. Democrats wanted, and you can't blame them, Republicans tried to do the same thing in 2017 and 2018. What about tax reform? We passed taxes. Nobody gave a damn about tax reform. That was a healthcare election. Yes. And it buried Republicans because of it. Democrats are having this same thing happen to them. They wanted this to be a healthcare election, talking about the pandemic response, talking about mandates and mask wearing, being responsible with the pandemic response, right? You know their whole shtick. It was very powerful in 2020. They wanted it to be about Medicaid expansion, and they wanted it to be about Donald J. Trump. The voters of Virginia just didn't care. They did not buy it. The voters of Virginia said, no. I care about the economy. I care about jobs. I care about cost of living, inflation, and taxation. And guess what I really care about if you're a parent? The direction that public education is moving in this state. It's everything Terry McAuliffe and Democrats could not afford to happen.
It's their nightmare.
It's their nightmare. It's their worst nightmare. Thank you for the Jolly Rancher. I love apple Jolly Ranchers. Sour apple.
I love watermelon.
You know what? To each his own.
You have that apple. I'm having
Have I told you that you look gorgeous?
Oh, I think you don't make me turn red. Okay, moving forward.
I'm a chauvinist, right, ladies? Yeah, I know all about it. No, that's what's up. Believe me, every time I make a comment like that to you, some hater says I'm a
jelly,
chauvinistic pig.
They're just jelly because you're not saying it to them and you're saying it to me.
Revenge of the protective daddies.
Yes, I love it.
I'm serious. I mean, it's a big deal that more people now have heard about the story in Loudoun County. When we first started polling for CD Media, CDM.press, right? CDM.press. You can check out the results of that poll still on their site. When we started polling this race 2 weeks ago, only a third of the state told us that they were aware of that. It was a Daily Mail story. Mm-hmm. It was only really making the rounds in conservative circles. But Glenn Youngkin did something brilliant. And he said, I will demand an investigation into Loudoun County. And by the way, I will ban critical race theory from the schools. But we can see from the margins that it is very clear. Very clear. Men had an extreme reaction, and women did too, because those female parental groups in Virginia are actually pretty good for Republicans. I mean, for Democrats. And they're not this time. All right, critical race theory. As much as I love Jolly Rancher, I can't speak with it in my mouth, Laura.
I see that.
All right. It may actually, let me just double up and see if that actually changed to critical race theory. Let's see if it did. You guys looking at the locals poll, you see the final? Did it change much, marginally, or just, marginally? All right, so I'll give the new numbers as we do this, but, all right. Which would you say comes closer to your view about education? All right, and critical race theory, you guys might remember Merrick Garland's hearing last week where he got plowed about his family doing work for universities, and he boasted that they had spoken and basically surveyed, I don't remember how many students, but from all over the country. It is from, in fact, the Harvard survey that they gave to their students in that program that we took the definition of critical race theory, or their goal, what they are trying to say it's about. And that is, children should be taught the only way to overcome racism is to acknowledge U.S. society, laws, and institutions are inherently racist, and some are disadvantaged no matter what they do. 2 in 10 voters in the state of Virginia agreed with that. And it's raining and oh man. Wow, that's bad for Terry. Very bad. One of the viewers just told us it's, they were trying to make a big push today for in-person early. Mm-hmm. And, it's raining in Northern Virginia all day today. That's what someone just told us. And rain does matter for some people. There's just no doubt.
Older people don't.
We know that. It's well established. Anyway, critical race theory got 21%. That's it. All right, so children should be taught to be merit-based, racially colorblind, and capable of being whomever if they work hard. Not that they are disadvantaged based on the color of their skin. You know what I've always found interesting about the findings of this? Only 38% of black voters agreed with critical race theory. 17.1% of white voters agreed with it. Asians, 25.1%. Other 19.3. When you break Asian down, Indian, and then you break other, Native American, all right? Some of these other very small subgroups of minorities absolutely loathe critical race theory. Do you know who loathes critical race theory the most? Hispanics. In this state,
I know.
9.9% of Hispanics chose critical race theory's definition. 89.1% of Hispanics chose the traditional American definition of the traditional American goal of public education and how we should cast the country. The American dream, personal responsibility, you get what you put in. The Protestant ethic, folks. It's the Protestant ethic. That is what made America such an economic powerhouse. That's the worldview that really resonates. 72.7% of white voters in Virginia chose the traditional answer. And by the way, 72% of Asians did too. It's just that more Asians chose critical race theory. I want to make that clear. Only 38% of African American voters agreed with that statement. And as we have seen in national polling, it's less among African American voters in national polling. A majority of African Americans disagreed, and chose the other definition. So even if critical race theory, again, was on a statewide referendum in the state of Virginia, and only black people voted on it, it would still fail.
What does that tell you, people?
What does that tell you? Exactly. Go ahead, Laura, make a comment. What does that tell you? I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were good.
No.
I'm just saying, just read your constituents. And if you read your constituents, you wouldn't be up a creek without a paddle. All right? Now you're drowning. Now you're sworn. Now you're, oh my God, you had Biden come out for you. What were you
That was stupid. Even Obama was good. People still like Obama there.
Yeah, but I'm saying Biden, he can't even say his first name without being confused. He thinks he's his wife's husband.
It's 43 to 46 points. That's where his approval rating has been over the last 2 weeks in the state that we've been in it. But as low as 43 and as high as 46. I think it's like 46.4 in this poll right here. I'll take a look. Talking about in the latest. But it's still, while people say, well, that's not terrible, it's still an incredibly large decline from his vote share. And there are people who are telling us, because we asked them, what is the impact Joe Biden will have on your vote in the midterms? And if you, first of all, a lot of people say a great deal. And then if you look at people who say a great deal or quite a lot, or a lot, they're negative. They're all negative. So it's just not, he's a negative. Toxic is probably the right word.
Yeah.
It's even though his approval isn't that bad, it's just his agenda is not popular. Yeah, it's just not popular. And I think it's a competency issue as well. If you look at Fox's poll, Quinnipiac's poll, it's becoming an issue of competence.
Yeah.
And that's when voters start to say to themselves, you know what, I think I need a check on this guy.
Yeah.
Because like Trump, it was like his temperament they didn't like, or right, his attitude. I think I need to check on this guy. Who knows what he may do? That's kind of how some these independent swingy voters, that's how they think. So
and they're also good for, okay, we tried and that was a no-go. Now let's reverse.
Yeah, now let's let's redirect, let's refocus, let's triangulate, if we can't if nobody wants to make some kind of an understanding, we'll show you. By the way, even 50.6% of Democrats disagreed with the critical. Only 37.6% chose critical race theory's definition. 7.6% of Republicans did, and only 16.7% of independent others did. If you break that down, independent, unaffiliated, truly, 18% only did. Of those third-party voters, 12.5% did. That's it. So this was, Obama wanted to say this was a fake issue, right? And McAuliffe tried following up on that. This is a fake issue. Republicans drum up for. It's not. And parents were not put back on the shelf this time, this time. Typically they try to just dismiss them and concerns, and it works because the media helps them. But again, Glenn Youngkin focusing on education the way he did, and then even to get from one side of that issue to the other, critical race theory, from getting from the sexual assault, transgender bathrooms, stuff like that, which we're going to look at in a bit, from getting there to critical race theory, he helped doing that too. Because if you're calling for an investigation into something, and if we're going to look right now, Loudoun County News reports, we are now up to 46% yes, 46% no, who hadn't heard of it. It slightly was positive for yes last night for the first time ever. These are people who didn't know about this issue, many of them, because when we started, it was just under a third that believed, like 32.8, that told us they knew about it. Those are diehard Republicans, right? Mostly. I'm talking in generalities here. Glenn Youngkin, making the decision he did, making the moves he did, he got the attention of at least almost 2 in 10 voters that didn't know before. And that's a big deal, because the more you hear about it, the more likely you are to dislike it, and then of course vote for Glenn Youngkin. That has been the pattern. If education is your top issue, 3 out of 4 are going to Youngkin.
Mm-hmm.
And in Fox News' poll, I believe it was 80 something. So the more aware you are of these reports, then the more likely you are to run away from the Democratic, Democratic thing. So let me pull up. Let me get rid of this. Let's look at vote preference, public set. Here we go. Let's stick with public education for a second, okay? Please tell us whether you support or oppose each of the following public school policies pertaining to transgender students. And what's interesting about this, okay? What's very interesting about this is that we give them 2 different ways to approach what happened in Loudoun County. So let's just generically ask about gender-neutral bathrooms. And then let's explain it more when we get into all of these other issues. Some of you, if you follow the Public Polling Project, which we would encourage you to support at bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. If you follow it, some of these you'll recognize, because we did this in a national poll. All right. And it was not good for people who support these, the school boards, people on the school boards. They're the ones who are supporting it. Nobody voted on this stuff, Laura. Nobody voted on it. It just ended up as policy because they support it. The school board supports it.
Well, because you're a domestic terrorist if you disagree.
If you disagree with it, you're a domestic terrorist, right? Gender-neutral bathrooms, all right? And how that was, if you want exactly how it was worded, I could get it. But do you support or oppose the establishment of gender-neutral bathrooms? And it's actually on this, yeah. Do you support or oppose the policy of establishing gender-neutral bathrooms in public schools? All right, 51% oppose, 38.8% or 30. So let's just call it 39% support, and 10.4% were unsure. All right, that actually ticked up, Laura. It's 51, right? It's 51. Yeah, about 51% oppose. It's just a little higher than 51 now. It's 50.9, and now it's like 51.1. Big deal. Not a big deal. All right. 18.6% strongly support it. That's it. Moving on to the next one. All right. Which is, it's so small. Transgender students participating on sports teams alongside the gender they identify with, such as biological males identifying as female, joining a biological female soccer team, or vice versa. 26.3% support this, folks. 56.3% oppose it, which I'm not going to look at the numbers. It's probably a little bit higher. We're in the general ballpark here, and I'll just stick to it, right? And 17.4% were unsure. This only gets worse as we go. And then the last one that we did is interesting because it's another way to basically ask about gender-neutral bathrooms, or like the implications of them. All right. Transgender students competing for sports scholarships against the gender they identify with, such as biological males identifying as female competing against biological females for a track and field scholarship, or vice versa. All right, 22.9% supported that, 59.1% opposed it, and 18% were unsure. For anyone who needs me to, for anyone who still, maybe might not have heard me say this before, when we did the national polling, that unsure number was high. And our national poll does include what we call social desirability bias indicators. It tells us whether or not someone is comfortable answering certain questions. All right. And they may cop out and say they're unsure, have no opinion about something that they feel is not safe to give their opinion to.
Because they're afraid that somehow it'll lead back to them.
Right. So rest assured that those unsures are majority going to lean against probably slightly bigger than the margin we see here, by a 2-1, 3 to whatever it may be, because they're scoring. So they're sending the signal. It's like if you have a positive response to some of these questions, then you threw a signal basically, and you really are an opposer of these policies. You just don't want to say it. And I hate to say it's the same reason why during the era of gay marriage debates, when we had referendums, they would always go down in flames, even though the polling would suggest some of them were tight. Do you remember North Carolina back years ago? Yeah. They had voted on gay marriage, and it was supposed to be close. And it went down like 66-33 or something ridiculous. And California, gay marriage was supposed to pass by referendum, and it failed in the state of California. This is why it's very difficult to poll people who don't feel comfortable giving their opinions. So we add those questions as a way to say, okay, you're one of them. And we can at least, maybe we wouldn't know, and actually we can, using a regrouping variable, we can take those and give you what is probably a more accurate margin, which would be higher opposition. But we're just going to leave it to self-reporting for now. All right, and then this final one is another issue very similar to gender neutral, a way to come at them when it comes to gender neutral. We were worried that gender neutral bathrooms may confuse people. It's like, well, you have a gender neutral bathroom in the mall. It's a family bathroom or whatever it may be. So we wanted them to understand with more clarity what we were talking about. So transgender students using locker and bathroom facilities with the gender they identify with, such as biological males identifying as female, sharing locker rooms and bathrooms with biological female students, or vice versa. Folks, that is more applicable to what happened in Loudoun County, because the assault was dealt with this specific issue. 57% opposed this. 27.8% supported it. It scored the second highest opposition out of any of these, behind only track and field scholarships, sports scholarships. And I'll tell you why that is. It's an issue of fairness. When it comes to scholarships and transgender participation in sports, period, not just with students, but even at the Olympics or, whatever it may be, certain leagues, it's about fairness to voters. It's not really a civil rights issue, or to many, it's not even a moral issue. It's about fair. It's not fair to put that female bodybuilder against a biological male. It's not fair. And we saw what happened. What did we see happen? Right? So this is why, by the way, a lot of Republicans are terrified of this issue. And it's pathetic. Because if you come at it the right way, which I believe is the correct way, in the non-prejudicial way, I guess you would say, it's very simple to argue as an issue of fairness. Example, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. Optically, that presser was brilliant. And the media, and the 22%, and the rest of the 22% who agree with them on these issues, came across looking like they did not have the best interests of those young girls at heart. They came across as willing to sacrifice their futures just to be virtuous, to today's new definition of virtue signal. And voters don't care about this crap. Voters do not agree with it. And more Republicans could take Ron DeSantis' cue. Holy crap, we're almost at the top of the hour already. There's so much to go over. I still have so much more. I know. Charlie Kirk, is that live at 1:30 today? If you guys want to just do some announcements here before we lead into the break. I'll be on Charlie Kirk at 1:30. Sebastian Gorka here. We're going to work this out. Oh, we did tell Charlie, and I may have to, if that interferes with Sebastian, we may have to, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, that may have to change because I did tell him, that, but he just didn't get back. So we'll have to see. Sorry, I scheduled Charlie first. Yeah, he didn't get back to us yet, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. And then later on, I'll be back on Real America's Voice at 5:00 evening for the special on the Virginia election, specifically dealing with the DC suburbs, which again, Glenn Youngkin is performing well in. At least in the polling it is. I really wish Fox would have put out regional crosstabs. Yeah, would have been nice. No, I'm serious. Because I want to know. I already spoke to other pollsters. I mean, I know what one university pollster and then another one who's going to have a poll out probably today. He said so on Hannity last night, apparently. I already know what some other people are finding. But I would have liked to see in that +8 they had, what the DC suburbs look like. Would have been nice, Fox. Would have been nice. I just think that the Fox News number is a little unfair to Terry McAuliffe. Now, could Glenn Youngkin romp to victory? 6-8 points? Yeah. I mean, especially 6. If we didn't, catch the tail end of this surge, maybe then it's possible. And Darren Shaw or Anderson, whoever is the Democrat in the Fox poll. Yeah, Shaw's the Republican, I think. Mr. Anderson said, it does look like there's a point where Democrats are starting to feel defeated. And that can have a catastrophic impact on turnout.
That is no bueno.
And I know I spoke to a Democratic strategist yesterday, and she said, nobody's going to let on, and you wouldn't know it from being in these circles. But everybody knows that this race favors Youngkin, And it said it's going to be close. She thinks it's going to be close, and I do too. I mean, it could be that he runs away with it. Right now, he's got the momentum, but I mean, if it's Virginia, it should by all measures, this thing should be like a razor thin margin. And we had a 4/10 advantage. That's it. For Terry McAuliffe among the likely voters with leaners for the Creative Destruction media poll. And in the first ballot, without leaners, Youngkin had an edge. And then with leaners, it looked like it helped McAuliffe a little bit. And then all of a sudden, these people just, these decision makers and independents and others just broke for Youngkin hard. And that's what gave Youngkin a 3-point lead in our poll. All right. Wasn't really that much of a turnout model. Our modeling is still D+2. It's just such a big lead among independents and third parties. All right. So I got those show announcements. I may or may not be on Gruber. I don't know. But we'll throw all of this up. Laura's doing a media appearance thing on Locals at your request, which was excellent. I used to do that before the election in 2020. I wasn't on Locals yet, but I would pin it on Twitter. That was a good idea, community, as usual. And again, we would not have been able to follow up after the Creative Destruction poll if it was not for the incredible growth in the Locals community. This is a Locals poll because it's Locals funded. We would never have been able to continue to track it. All right. So if you follow along, you love the work, whatever it may be, you like these videos, of course, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, give us a rumble on Rumble, all of that. Right. And sign up, subscribe to Rumble, whatever it may be. What do they call it? It's subscribe on Rumble still, right? It's a plus sign. It's that's a Rumble to like. Yeah. Subscribe on Rumble, subscribe on YouTube. Definitely still hit the notification bell on YouTube, and that'll let you know right before, or hopefully before we go live. But consider joining the Locals community at peoplespundit.locals.com. It really is a community. It's not a social media website, which makes all the difference. The discussion is totally different. It is civilized, and you have the ability to really make an argument. It's much longer. You can upload supportive documents if you're trying to make a point. And then, of course, we have live chats. We don't do, off locals. We do periodic live streams. We do not do anywhere else other than locals. And of course, you have this, access to polling and insight into things before we even make it public. So it's worth it. It really is. And the community is making a difference. People from the community, we've been talking about this now over the last week. In case nobody noticed, more and more people are releasing things in decimal instead of whole number format. Methodologies read almost verbatim like our criticisms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just us. It's the courage of others like Robert Cahaley from Trafalgar and Jim Lee at Susquehanna to speak up and say, can you please not destroy our profession before people don't trust us anymore? And, it absolutely is making a difference. So consider signing up. peoplespundit.locals.com. It's 12:01. We are now at the top of the hour. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to play some Bad Habit. When we come back, we'll do a little bit. I got so much to go over, but if you've got questions on it, throw them at us. But we'll also have Don on soon. And we'll do our Q&A, and I want to get his take on what he thinks is going on in the Old Dominion. All right, stay tuned. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
It's like weird. I'm wearing my earpiece today, and it's strange because I don't hear the monitor back feeding to me. So it's weird. Anyway, all right, we're back. Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. We are going over the latest results from the Virginia Gubernatorial Election Locals Poll and comparing it to the Creative Destruction Media Poll we did earlier and what is going on and seeing what is happening. All right, and this is the totality. To sum it all up, guys, it's a first-term incumbent midterm, special election off year. All right, Virginia and New Jersey do this. We can get into Virginia a little bit. Look, I really do think how this thing moves in Virginia will probably have some impact on New Jersey. So if Youngkin does better than people expect, and I mean better, like 5 points, 6 points, then New Jersey's going to be closer. But as of right now, I'd like to see some internal polling from some other people. The Monmouth poll had it anywhere between 7 and 11 points, I think it was. I think that probably is being 11 points, I think, is being a little bit friendly to Murphy, but I hadn't polled it. So what do I know? All right. I chose to focus on Virginia because it's a competitive race. In these years, when you see a party in power struggle and the electorate turns against them, a 10-point swing is nothing. Nothing. Ralph Northam won by 8 points in 2017. McAuliffe won in 2013, barely. 2.5 over Ken Cuccinelli. And Bob McDonnell, the Republican that year in 2009, when Obama's first term was in the middle of his first term, or not in the middle, in the beginning of his first term, Bob McDonnell creamed the Democratic candidate, creamed him, and that was at that point Virginia was turning into a blue state. I think Bob McDonnell's outsized win caused people to think that it could that year shift back to Mitt Romney, and along with how Republicans did in congressional districts. And I think fundamentally Republicans have a lot more work to do if they think that's going to be the case at the presidential level. If it turns out, because I'm looking at the voter file analysis, and so much for the D+8, it's gone. I mean, the idea that it could be a D+8 is over. It was routinely, very close, D+1 or 2 when Hillary Clinton beat Trump. Throughout Trump's years, it expanded, getting to D+4, 5-ish. And I fully expected, because Biden won it by 10 points, when those new attributes rolled in, we would be looking at a D+6, at least D+8, maybe more. It went back to even in July, damn near even. You guys remember that one we put up in July on locals. And then October 21st was the one we put up on locals, most recent, and it was R4. So even with Trump and Biden profiled voters being perfect, because we checked profiling those voters. I mean, it still showed a Biden +10. It's just those people had changed their minds. I mean, independents and moderate, soft Republicans changed their minds, most of them. Okay. So this is where we are now. And why is that happening? Again, first term, incumbent, off-year election, and also because the issues, the environment of the race favors Glenn Youngkin. The landscape of this election favors Glenn Youngkin. He is the choice of voters who chose 3 out of the 4 top voting issues. McAuliffe does well among people who chose coronavirus, but Youngkin still takes a little bit more than a third of that vote. Because if you chose coronavirus or vaccinations and mandates, cobble them together, if you chose all of, that as your number one issue, one of those, and which now lost ground to public education, you didn't choose it because you universally agree with the Democratic position on how to handle the pandemic response. A third to 35% chose it because they oppose any more mandates, vaccine, mask, or otherwise. They chose it because they oppose more restrictions to businesses. They oppose hurting the economy further. So it's not a one-sided issue like education is for Glenn Youngkin. I mean, he's just crushing it among people who said public education is my number one issue, which is helping him. With demographics, you would not think he would do this well with. College-educated voters, black and brown voters. I mean, and then, of course, he's expanded his lead among whites. Gillespie won whites, but he only won them. Let's go back and look at exactly how much Gillespie won whites by. 57 to 42. And right now, if you look at it by race, Is that the final poll right there? No, that's nested by gender. If you look at it by race, let's get I want to give you the most recent ones. Youngkin's lead expanded quite a bit among white voters. Gender, race, where are you? There you are. It's now 58-39. So among white voters, Youngkin has stretched his legs a little bit. He's pulling... McAuliffe has increased his black vote share, by the way. He's now just under 80. Fox News was at 80. Mm-hmm. We have him just under 80. Well, that's not good because Ralph Northam won that vote overwhelmingly. Let's see if I have this here. 87-12. Northam won the black vote over Ed Gillespie. Right now, it's 77-14. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's just not. And then the Hispanic vote among the most likely voters, we found what Spencer at Emerson found. Mm-hmm. Among the most likely voters, Youngkin is leading among Hispanics. The greater voter universe, McAuliffe leads by 11. That ain't good. It's 4% of the vote, but that even if we give him the most Democratic-friendly scenario, it's a 20-point move away from the Democratic candidate for governor to the Republican candidate. All right. Where is it? Northam again carried the Hispanic vote 67-32. All right. Big difference, guys. And we continue to see that. So at first I was like kind of mind blown by it, but Hispanics were voting Republican on the generic ballot in our prior polling for 2 weeks. I mean, it was pretty solid. It was only a few point lead, but it was a lead nonetheless, 2-3 points. And then I saw other polling that did put Hispanics in the Republican column. And at first I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe the voter model is doing that. But look at California. Hispanic men voted just like white men. And it did get more male too, by the way. We're not looking at a 47-53 split. We're looking at near 50-50 here, 51-49. Which is, I believe, what it was in 2017. And then it was 48-52 in the presidential election. So don't be surprised if this turns out to be 50-50. It shouldn't shock you if it does. All right, let's bring in my good friend Don if he's ready. All right. We got my, he's ready. There's his hand. How you doing, my friend?
Good, how are you doing?
Welcome to Inside the Numbers, as always, on a Friday for our Q&A. Living the dream.
Sweet.
Living the dream.
Same here.
Listen, I got to get your take on this polling. I talked to you about it now for a while. You know I've been polling this race. Mm-hmm. It definitely seems to me that Youngkin is ahead. Mm-hmm. And he's got a lead now. For a while, I did see other people had maybe a 1-point lead for Youngkin. I know his internal polling was looking good. He said last night on Hannity, this race isn't going to be close. That's what he said. I heard. I did not see it myself. I don't watch Hannity, but somebody told me that Glenn Youngkin said this race will not be close. Last couple polls out yesterday, Emerson had him ahead by about 0.4 of a percentage point. The Fox News poll by 8, which I talked about. I think that's a little, maybe I'm wrong, maybe, but I think it's a little generous to Youngkin. And then another poll, which was reported by the Washington Examiner, was Youngkin by 4. Mm-hmm. So that all in a day. And I know we're going to get Trafalgar soon because I know that. So I'm curious to see what his polling says. What's your take here, buddy? What's your take?
Yeah,
I'm a jolly ranter.
We've been talking about this for a long time, and I've never seen the Democrats so out of sorts with their messaging, and they're controlling the message. And I mean, McAuliffe looks like old man yells at trees. He's just the guy's going off the rails. And I think number one, he thought this was going to be easy, right? I mean, you look at the numbers, and
it should have, man.
It should have been. It should have been. But the education thing is going to be huge. So for any candidate out there, I'm talking to Republican candidates, any candidate out there, that is a huge issue. And as much as Obama wants to say it's made up, it's fake news, and all these people want to try to diminish it. Whenever you see a leftist trying to diminish something, you know it's important. You know it's important to the people. So McAuliffe has become old man yells at tree, and it's not a good look for him. He keeps yelling at people, and I hope he continues. So yeah, I think
hope he does.
I think McAuliffe has turned this thing around the wrong way. I think the people he's got out there standing up on stage, also doing old man yells at tree, is not helpful. Yeah. So I'm just amazed to watch his campaign completely fall apart and lose complete control of all the messaging. We're seeing the same thing with Joe Biden too. So if you look at the polling numbers, I was noticing on those, what you were showing, and we've talked about it, like you said, if you look at them, they're very much in line with Joe Biden. I mean, the same number of losses in how you deal with education, how you deal with the economy, all those things are pretty much in line with the numbers, the fall that you're seeing of Joe Biden.
Yeah, 43 to 46% his approval rating has been around over the last couple of weeks of us doing this. Mm-hmm. But remember, he won Virginia 54-44. And again, I really can't repeat this enough because it's so damn important. He won independents and others, non-major two-party voters, 57 to 38 on nearly 20 points. This same group now is in the mid-30s with their approval of him. And now they're backing Youngkin by at least 30. It's, looks 13 to 15. And it could be, look, if Fox is right, then it is possible that lead among independents widens to damn near 20. Which we see, it's absolutely those that trickled in over the night that tweaked the number a little bit. Mm-hmm. That was many of them independents that were going for Youngkin, and then some were Democrats that decided and went with McAuliffe. Yep. But for the most part, it didn't help McAuliffe. It didn't. It didn't even move the 3-point margin.
Yep. Well, I think
those indies, I'm saying, they're the last to decide. They're the biggest group left, and if Youngkin is winning them by that margin. And that final 8 points decide, and it breaks at that margin, then Youngkin can stretch his legs out a little bit. I'm serious.
Yep. And I think that's a key point is the ones that were undecided, because let's face it, there's a lot of voters out there that they wait until that, whatever that time frame is, the last month, the last couple of weeks, whatever that time frame is, they wait to make their decision. And that's actually when what that means, I think, is they first start paying attention, right? So the timing of this implosion, timing of the implosion that McAuliffe is doing with his messaging, you've got a bunch of people that are just now paying attention. So now they're seeing this, and they're seeing this guy yelling at reporters. He's yelling. He's constantly, he keeps saying that he's sick and tired of, and it's always about the parents doing this and the parents objecting to this and the parents. He's saying he's sick and tired of parents. Probably not a really good messaging strategy, but this is why I'm always so opposed to the early voting stuff, right? Because there's a bunch of people that voted already that if they'd have seen this and they would have taken this into account, probably wouldn't have voted for him, the ones that have voted for him. So I'm always really against all the really early voting, like 6 months before you're voting already. You might want to, you might want to wait and see how this thing plays out. And, but I think that's what's really happening right now is those people that were undecided are now going, well, I'm not going to vote for this guy. He's sick of parents. He's sick of this. He's angry about this. He's just an angry guy.
Yeah, and the number of people that heard about the Loudoun County stories increased. Last week when we first crunched the number, it was like 33%. Yep. And then it rose and it was about 38. And then 40, 42. It's now nearly half. So it's about even. Yes and no. And last night it was actually plus yes for a little bit, like 48, 46. Mm-hmm. And I tweeted about it because it was noteworthy. Like, the more aware you become of these reports, the more you concern yourself with education, and then the more likely you are to become a Youngkin voter if you are an independent. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of amazing because it doesn't like race. All the things we've been trained, to think are the deciding factor. That's why Youngkin is at 15% with African American voters. I really believe that. Look what happened with Ron DeSantis. African American voters care about education. They do. They do. And I don't understand Republicans sitting there with their heads up their butt, but it was a brilliant move by Youngkin to start calling for an investigation to say he will ban critical race theory. which let me pull it up again. I mean, is for people who might have missed it because I see the audience jumped here, is grossly unpopular.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 2 in 10 voters in Virginia agree with the concept of critical race theory and what it's trying to do.
Right.
More than a slightly higher than a supermajority disagree.
Right.
So, I mean, it's amazing. I'm sorry I did that when you didn't know I was going to
I've done it too.
Down.
I've done it to people.
You did that.
And then yeah, I did do it. It was an accident. And then the voter view on transgender issues and gender neutral bathrooms, that really, it's swollen over. The opposition numbers started to swell over this last week. And there was, without a doubt, that is because Glenn Youngkin did that. Because if you're not a reader of the Daily Wire, if you're not looking at conservative sites, the Republican candidate for governor brings it up, and then the voter says, what is he talking about? Because the Washington Post didn't report it, and that's their backdoor newspaper. Richmond didn't report it, right? And then, or Roanoke is another one. They didn't report it. And out of nowhere, they Google it, and they find it. And then they learn about it. And it was brilliant for him to do that, because I really think it's going to be upwards of 2 in 10 voters in the electorate that him doing that became aware of that issue when they would not have been.
Right.
Because if you're not a Fox News watcher or reader, if you're not a Daily Wire reader, which many people are not, especially in this state. You know, I mean, this state, the Washington Post caters to this state. I mean, really. You remember in 2017, they had an enormous impact on Ralph Northam not being held to account by voters for the blackface picture. That would have ruined anyone else's career, my friend.
Especially the defense that the reason they dropped the investigation.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the KKK or the guy. Go ahead, explain it to people.
Yeah, he didn't know whether he was the KKK guy or the guy in blackface, which means at some point in his life he must have done both, because I think any of us would remember. Oh yeah, I had a Klan outfit on.
How could you not remember? How could you not remember whether you put a Klan outfit on, Don? Is that reasonable?
I think I would remember that. Yeah, I've never wore a Klan outfit, but I think if I ever had, I would probably remember that. That's amazing. There's a national thing here too that I think is important to look at, because we all know, and you and I've talked about this a lot. We've talked about it with potential candidates, people getting ready to announce. Every Republican has to be ready to have the Trump label stamped on their forehead, right? Yeah. So it's going to be about, do you think the election was stolen? Do you support everything that President Trump did? All these things. Well, obviously, we've seen that in this race. We've seen Glenn Youngkin is Trump. He's Trump. What's happening here, what's being proven, is it's not quite the albatross that they thought it would be, and that you can overcome it. And this has got to be sending a lot of fear amongst the Democrat Party. I mean, they've got to be watching this going, wait a minute, I thought for sure this would work everywhere. And right now it's not. So I think that's also something to kind of keep in mind, a little bit of a bellwether or indicator anyway, going into the midterms. And
I'll say, that as further proof that is a good observation, when we first started polling, another difference here between the CDM media poll and the locals final is that Youngkin was underperforming some generic Republicans in districts in the generic ballot. Now the generic ballot widened out a point. It was Republican +3, and now it's Republican +4 if you round, 46.6 to 43.4. A lot of that has to do with men deciding and independents deciding from last week. But Youngkin is now above that. So Youngkin is this close to 50%. This is Terry McAuliffe's problem. Here in the Fox poll, he's at 53, and McAuliffe is at 45. We have him right, and I mean right, under 50%. And if Terry McAuliffe was to lose a few more, black and brown voters, it's over. Look who's left to decide. About 3% of Republicans haven't decided. Yep. About 4% of Democrats haven't decided, which, by the way, that's what actually came in. Some of that came in. A reason why it didn't help Terry's overall margin is because some of the independent came in. But it's still roughly 8% of independents who are who remain undecided. It's like 7.9, I think, or 7.8 after those
Mhm.
trickles. And they went for Youngkin. So if that's
Mhm.
the biggest group left, he's got 0.5 of a percentage point to go, my friend. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep. Yeah, I
That's
think
why I'm saying, like, I don't want to say, like, because turnout can impact everything.
correct.
But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, in my experience, it is difficult at this stage of the game to change the dynamic, especially since your dynamic didn't work. It was the dynamic at first,
Yep.
and then they effectively changed it on you. And we have 1, 2, 3 days before Election Day.
Yeah, and I think you hit the key right there. It's about voter turnout. So it's always that thing that we've been talking about for years now is the voter enthusiasm. And this is I think this is where the whole education thing really plays into this, because you want to motivate parents to get out and vote, start going after their kids, start doing all this stuff with their kids, saying they shouldn't be
Incredible.
involved in the say. And I think that's a hugely important factor in voter enthusiasm. And I think that's going to drive a lot of parents out. And those parents that are going to be motivated by that are not going to run out so they can vote for McAuliffe and be shut out of the whole conversation. So I think I'm really curious to see what that turnout looks like.
Yeah, and going back to it, revenge of the daddies.
Yep.
I'm telling you, if you look at these numbers, revenge of the daddies,
Get 'em,
protective
daddies.
daddies like me,
Yep.
a lone daughter, 9, 10-year-old
Don
daughter
has a
that's gonna
daughter
one day
and
be in ninth
3
grade.
daughters.
You have a daughter, you know what
Yep.
I'm talking about.
Mhm.
To watch a man removed
Yep.
like a criminal from a school board meeting because his daughter was triple assaulted, sodomized, orally assaulted, and regularly assaulted.
Yep.
It's making me angry just thinking about it. To have him removed like a domestic and then called a domestic terrorist, Don.
Yep.
I don't even know what to say about that. I honestly never thought we would hear something like that.
Yep.
And I can't tell you obviously the power it's having. Look at, yes, one or more school-age children under 18. That female group right there is closer than it should be for McAuliffe. He should be winning them by like 58, 30 something, right? And then men, though, holy moly. If you are a man with a daughter in school, 67% for Glenn Youngkin, holy crap.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, people care about their kids, and nobody can really defend that thing that is saying that parents shouldn't be involved. Like I said, he keeps using that. He keeps using the term, "I'm sick and tired of parents doing this, parents trying to remove books from schools, parents doing this." So he keeps saying he's sick and tired of parents. Man, if I'm his comms guy, I'm like, do not ever say that again. Shut up.
Yeah. Will you shut up? My God. And they tried to say it was fake, and Obama was like, this is, that and critical race theory are fake issues, but they just, they're not buying it, man. It's that simple. You're not going to be able to do this. Right. It's just not going to work. At this point, too, that's why I'm saying I don't know how you turn this around, because at this point, people are baked. They're baked. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Message-wise,
they're getting angrier because it's
of what
Don's
Don's saying. Yeah. And because it's getting more well known.
Traction.
Yeah. And Don, it's like first impressions are everything. You know this from messaging. First impressions are everything. Having, trying to change the way that somebody is thinking about you and what's at stake at an election, during an election. I mean, you needed to do this last month. That's the problem. From a messaging point of view that McAuliffe has, you needed to do this last month and then maintain it and defend it against a narrative change. And Youngkin changed that narrative. Republicans, he had help, but he did what he needed to do to support that. And he changed that like right in the nick of time, right down at the home stretch.
Well, and look at the parents too, because one of the things they try to do, and this goes along with the albatross of Trump around these people's necks. So they've done this with these parents. So they're trying to make it all that you didn't see any of these parents walk up to the microphone with a MAGA hat on You didn't see any of that. These are people from all sections of life, from all races, ethnicities, economics, the status of it, the money, all these things. So by doing that, that was really hurtful too, because you've got a lot of parents going, no, I just care about my kids. I didn't support Trump. I don't like Trump. So don't try to put me into that group, into that box. And I think that's really had a big impact as well.
And then there's the economic part of this, okay? Which is that, people wanted to hear more about how you were going to deal with inflation. Amazingly, how many people pick taxation because they are having that grocery tax fight, right? Mm-hmm. And McAuliffe said, no, I'm not going to, the grocery tax is on the table. And Glenn Youngkin said, I'm going to make sure that you don't pay a grocery tax. I mean, they do already, but, I'm going to get rid of it. And, during this time, the last thing you need with rising inflation is a grocery tax. So, people care about the pocketbook stuff, and healthcare can be framed as a pocketbook issue, but they just didn't do it, man. Medicaid expansion, they made an ideological argument for.
Exactly.
In the pandemic, they regurgitated hope. They tried to do what Gavin Newsom did. But Gavin Newsom's in the state of California, man. It's not Virginia. You know what I mean? It's totally different.
They're still tight. They're still hung up on this thing that they were given a mandate, right, by the election of Joe Biden. So they were given this mandate. And even if there was a little bit of that at the beginning, that's obliterated at this point. You look at the shipping issues, you look at the southern border, you look at, everything, Afghanistan, look at everything. So even if they did have that, which I don't believe they did, but even if they did at that point, that's gone. That's long gone. And they have not caught up with that yet. They haven't understood that yet.
All right, let's bring in some questions. We got loads of questions. I'm not shocked, and we can't go over today because I got some other bookings I got to do. Well, I got one at 1:30, but I got to eat in between because I haven't eaten. All right, I haven't eaten or slept. Yeah. So that's I like the grind, man. I always did. I really do. All right, go ahead.
Okay, real quick, Derek wanted you to know Adam Kinzinger retired.
Kinzinger left? He's out? Don, is that true?
That's the news.
If that's true, that means this is going to be not just a route, it's going to be a Trump-looking route. Mm-hmm. If he really retired, there are 310 tweets about him in the last hour. Mm-hmm. He's out.
Wow.
He's out. Let's listen to it. I don't know if it's after the election or what. Hold on. Oh, hold on. Oh, his voice drives me crazy.
I know.
All right. And in 2009, I returned home from Iraq. Dude, shut up. Oh, my God. Here we go. With audio. You ready? Mm-hmm. 2009. Here we go.
In 2009, I returned from Iraq and made a decision that ran in the face of all odds and sanity. I would challenge an incumbent in a seemingly unwinnable race for Congress. At that time, I was spurred to run by my conviction of our role in the world. Somehow I won, and I'll never forget that
because
campaign.
It was a 65-seat landslide, idiot.
Majority, and those supporters who reminded me to be my own man and to never do what they tell you to do, but do what's right.
You're someone's man, all right.
I stand tall and proud, knowing that I have done just that. Remember during that time to move on from Congress, I would. And that time is now. But let me be clear. My passion has only grown. My desire to make a difference is bigger than it's ever been. My disappointment in the leaders that don't lead is huge. The battlefield must be broader, and the truth needs to reach the American people across the whole country.
Do we need to listen to 5 minutes of this idiot, folks?
I don't think so.
I gave him. All right,
that was more than enough.
Dude, Adam Kinzinger. This is the biggest bought and paid for shill on Capitol Hill. I stood my own man. I stood tall. You're a bunch of people's man. All right, like they split you up into little pieces and divvy you out like a biatch. You have got to be kidding me. And by the way, a seemingly unwinnable race. Dude, it was a +7 Republican year or something ridiculous. They won 60 plus seats in the House of Representatives. Don, you gotta be joking me. Like it was David versus Goliath or something. Get the hell out of here.
He's delusional.
He's freaking delusional, just like the rest of them.
Yeah,
This is nuts.
So I don't know what next. Probably teaming up with Liz Cheney for a run to the White House, or what are we gearing up for
they'll
here?
either be on MSNBC, they'll become lobbyists, or
CNN.
CNN or something like that,
Oh,
or they'll
yeah.
become lobbyists, or what's it called? They'll
Think tanks.
like a think tank or something like that.
Oh, join
but
Silver Skunk.
But he is, he'll probably, it's Adam Kinzinger, given his background, he'll probably become either a lobbyist for the defense industry or a contractor for the defense industry. He'll make a lot of money, he'll get filthy rich, and he'll still be the same corrupt piece of crap he was a year before.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead with another, that was a good, thank you for telling me that. We
You're
needed that, guys.
Yeah.
That's
So,
big news.
Hey, Rich and Laura, what are the chances this Fox News +8 Youngkin poll was put out there to be able to blame Trump and his rally for destroying a big Youngkin lead, were Youngkin to lose, and use this as evidence Trump is too toxic and therefore we can't nominate him or MAGA candidates for 2022 and 2024?
What do you think, Don?
I kind of think it's the bottom line is it's proven the opposite, right? It's proven that he's not as toxic as they want him to be.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to that albatross thing, right? If I just can stamp Trump on this guy's forehead, then he's done. He's toast, because nobody will deal with him. Nobody will vote for him. So if that was their strategy,
Excuse me.
bad strategy. I think it's going to end up proving the opposite, and really curious to see how the election turns out, because everybody's watching it from I'm talking the political operatives on both sides. How's this going to work? How's it going to work? So they may have wanted to do that, but it didn't work. It's not helping them.
Yeah, if you are a Biden voter, 12% in the state of Virginia would vote Republican now this time. If you are a Trump voter, less than 2% would vote for Joe Biden. So, again, general narrative that there is a 10-point shift in the state of Virginia. At least 10 points. And if that's the case, that's all the advantage they had. So what are they going to do to fight it off? Turnout in an off-cycle year. I just don't buy it. In an off-cycle pro-Republican year, because Republicans don't lead like this early, folks. They don't. I mean, even in a good Republican year, like Adam Kinzinger was just talking about, Republicans weren't leading on the generic ballot until like maybe after Christmas into next summer. In 2014, they weren't leading until, well, they were with us a little bit before Labor Day. But for most other people, Senate races, they wound up winning by huge margins. Mark Pryor got killed by Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton didn't take the lead until like September. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. Go ahead, though, Laura. Go ahead. I know you got a lot. Rattle them off. Let's try to do a lightning round, because it's 12:37 and I am starving.
Is the mail-in status of Virginia, do they have that foolishness going on for this election? When will they actually know the results of the election?
Yeah.
Scared of the whole shenanigans of mail-in votes? How will the results from this election impact the infrastructure and other spending bills, if at all?
Well, I think that, honestly, that they're going to try to ram through what they're going to try to ram through regardless. They'll probably take if they are defeated, McAuliffe loses, they'll probably take it as a sign they need to push even harder, because they're going to get killed. Just like Adam Kinzinger leaving means he knew he was going to get robbed. And that is a race that was not one of the easier ones for a Trumplican candidate to win. So he's leaving because his polling is telling him he's done. And then secondly, I guess, Don, when it comes to Fairfax, it isn't universal mail-in voting in Virginia. So it isn't the same as, for instance, like Nevada or even Arizona, or definitely not California, but Georgia. It's not like that. They don't just unsolicited send out ballots like that. And there's in-person absentee voting. It's weird, I know. In-person early voting. The only difference, Don, maybe you have some more information on this. I'm sure you've heard it, but Fairfax is attempting to allow people to use the last four. instead of their entire social. You cannot treat voters differently. I can't believe Republicans haven't sued already. Mark Elias has been hired by Terry McAuliffe. Mark Elias is the piece of garbage lawyer, former co-worker of Michael Sussman, who is now indicted. He was a Russia hoaxer. Sussman is indicted for his part in the Russia hoax.
People want to know your thoughts about that too.
Yeah, Mark, I'm trying to hit a couple. I'll hit a bunch at once then. The only reason why you would hire Mark Elias, Don, you know this from Florida too. We had to deal with him in Florida how many times, but is to get a judge to allow election officials to count votes that are otherwise illegal. He was sanctioned by a judge for overstepping in an attempt to overturn an election in Iowa. I mean, this is not a good track record guy. I mean, he is effective, has been effective. He almost robbed Rick Scott of his Senate seat. So that was Mark Elias. Stacey Abrams was robbed 50,000 votes, 40-something thousand votes, whatever. That was Mark Elias. What are your thoughts on this, Don? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I am still very fearful, I guess, of we're still living in the pandemic voting world. And I don't like that. You and I talked about that at the very beginning of this pandemic, how we were concerned about what they were going to do, how they were going to take advantage of the crisis forever and cement it in. I mean, they're trying to federalize the election process now to make sure this never goes away and no evil governors, Republicans can change it. And so I'm really concerned about all those things still being in play, really concerned about the early voting, the mail-in voting, what you were just talking about, the last four of the social, and all these things. Republicans need to get a spine, get a backbone, and start doing something about this because they actually win this. I mean, look at the whole thing about voter IDs. People get it, and they're like, "Yes, we support having having to have an ID." So
we polled on that, by the way. I didn't even get to go over that. We have tons of election-related questions on this locals poll. I didn't even get to go. It's huge, man. It's like 80-something%.
You want to talk about somebody having a mandate? The Republicans have a mandate to push forward with fixing all this election stuff. People are out and about now; they're doing their thing, and we can go back to normal voting now. And so I'm really concerned about how that impacts this election and others going forward.
I know it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but I did want to share this because Fairfax did announce that they will not be able to count their votes significantly on time. We asked voters about this, and we asked them, like in Florida, if there should be election day deadlines for officials to report the total number of votes that are cast in their precincts or counties to prevent suspicion surrounding late arriving ballots. We're not saying Fairfax has to have the full, official number by election day. What we are saying is you need to know how many absentee ballots you have. You need to know how many in-person votes you have. This way, if there's a problem and you can't process them, then we know you are not stuffing the box later on. Because thank you, Bob Beckel, for telling everybody the truth on live television about what happens in Fairfax County. All right? Circa 2014, Mark Warner versus Ed Gillespie. Right. Yep. So voters in the state of Virginia, 47.2% strongly supported that. 25.4% supported it. Only 16.2%, including 6% who strongly opposed. 60 opposed that. Voters are like, I don't know why the hell Fairfax can't count their votes. Yeah. It doesn't matter, by the way, by party. It reminds me of Broward down in Florida. Laura Wright, it does. Absolutely. By party, even a majority of Democrats, 56.6%. said yes, we should have a law in the books, with a deadline, because it poisons. Don, this is what Laura and I was talking about. Yeah. When they do this, they can't have a single election where they don't inject this suspicion that is so toxic for our self-governing society. You can't get through a single election without playing footsies with your neighbor's wife under the table. I mean, this is disgusting. Yep. And if you lose, you lose. Don't hire Mark Elias to try to count 50,000 ballots that did not make the deadline. Yep.
The real voter suppression, because they always like to talk about voter suppression. The real voter suppression that takes place, and it's conducted by the left every time, is disenfranchising people. My vote, it doesn't even matter. Why should I even vote? Because this happens and this happens. So if you want to talk about voter suppression, that's what suppresses votes, and it does it across every every ethnicity and every race. And so when they talk about it like it's being done to them, they're the ones that do it. And this is just another
Amen.
example of that.
Amen, brother. Well put. Go ahead. You're ready. Yep.
All right. Joel wants to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but Loudoun until mid-2010s went Republican, right?
Yes, that's 100% true. Loudoun, I guess you didn't get to see that show. I wish you did. You should check it out. I don't know how to find it. I mean, because this is why I need to up my banner game. Because I'm sick of the banner being the same for every damn show, Don. Instead of because all the episodes are just now marked. They're not like, you have to look in the description to see what they're about. But we went over Virginia and how immigration, migration, and education have impacted Virginia over the last 30 years. And it was very, very eye-popping. And Loudoun County was like, what's it called when a new kid's, it's the what? Ground zero. It's like, Loudoun County was ground zero for that. And it did. It was not just went Republican. I mean, it went Republican pretty significantly. That's how George W. Bush carried the state twice.
Yep.
But Ken Cuccinelli only lost it by 4 or 5. So, if Youngkin comes within that to maybe 8, 10, even upwards of 10, if by district it's still lopsided turnout, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He could still do it. He could. But Cuccinelli was right there. But Cuccinelli just didn't do as well as Youngkin's doing in other parts of the state, like Hampton Roads and Richmond, outside of Richmond, south side. Youngkin's doing better there than Cuccinelli did. Cuccinelli did really well in Loudoun and then like the Shenandoah Valley. And everywhere else he got killed. So it was like just a hair. He really needed the rest of those burbs.
Yeah, and I hope what happened in 2020 has. We talk about voter enthusiasm, but there's more to it than just the voter enthusiasm. It's the general enthusiasm. So I hope people have gotten involved in their local school boards, which we're seeing that now, but also in these voting places. I hope we have. I'm not expecting equal representation because they're going to blow us away on that, but I hope we have at least some representation. And I hope we're prepared for what's going to happen here, because most of these same rules, if not all of them, are still in place for this election. So that's just my biggest concern.
Yeah, let me just real quick while Laura ferrets out the last one. Let's look at what did I just do? Enthusiasm. Let's check that out. Voter enthusiasm. I know that Youngkin obviously had a lead with voter enthusiasm. Yeah. So among those who are extremely enthusiastic, Youngkin leads 54-45. Among those very enthusiastic, it's about tied 47, or 48-47 McAuliffe. Moderately is McAuliffe, but that starts to really drip out. Slightly and none at all, or slightly is tied. None at all is actually Youngkin. So he has this like tail end. These are people, though, they were included, which is why I think the Fox News polls skewed, because they also include enthusiasm as if it's like a certainty to vote, somewhat likely. We don't do that. All right, we do something a little bit different, because we will, like that none at all category, Youngkin's leading. He's going to need those voters, even though they're not that many. He's going to need them because these are people, when we looked at them, they absolutely voted in at least 2 of the last 4 elections. Mm-hmm. So they're going to vote. So if they're telling you, I'm certain to vote, they have a voting pattern that fits that and substantiates that, and then they tell you they're not enthusiastic, you should not remove them from the sample. You don't have to be enthusiastic to go to the ballot box. Now, extreme enthusiasm does give an edge. It does. And we have measured that time and time again. It's just that voting intention has a stronger relationship. Certainty, likely, unlikely, right? Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Laura. I see you took with your wagon.
You were on that and you had that.
Yeah, you want me to pivot off of it? You got another one that's similar?
Holkauer wants to know what group makes up the unsure no opinion category for VA. And do we have a sense of which way they're leaning? So you kind of mentioned that. But.
Yeah, the independents, they are less white than independents overall. And you would think that would help McAuliffe. But like Laura and I said, last night it did not. Mm-hmm. When they trickled in last night, they did not at all, really. What did help him was Democrats who decided. And Don, I think this racial shift is very real.
It is. The issues that are in this whole race is they're not the typical issues where you can just drive that dividing line and say it's this and this. So it's white suburbans against. You can't do that because this is education. These are pocketbook issues. These are education. These are all these things that actually are uniting people. And for their side, they're uniting them against that messaging, as all your polling has shown over the past several months, not even just there, but around the country. So they're on the wrong side of everything right now.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. And I think they just, at this point, again, because people are always going to say, so what are you saying, Rich? What are you saying? What I'm saying is, I don't know how Terry McAuliffe turns around this message at this point. It's too damn late. It's good. It should be close, but and maybe it's not. Let me just put it this way.
Yeah.
I mean, Youngkin has an edge. I do think we got him up by 3. But I wouldn't be shocked if I'm wrong and I understate Youngkin. Because every day it's more. I kept texting Steve. He's like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, now it's 9. I remember this now it's 10. Now it's 11. Now it's 12. I mean, that widening out of that margin with independents told me, I'm so glad I stuck with this. Thank God for the locals community. peoplespundit.locals.com. Thank God that because we could do it, because I just knew it. I felt it. After you start doing it for all these years, you see it and you can feel it in your gut. It is really true that polling is like an art. It is not total science. I hate to tell everybody. It is really an art form. And sometimes you just have to feel what's in your gut and go with it.
That's why other people suck at it. They're not artists.
You can't data science your way into polling totally. You just can't. And you have to have an understanding of not just Americans now, but historically. And I'll just cut it there. Let Laura ask another question because that'll get me in an hour conversation.
Yes, thank you. Mary just wants to firm up that does McAuliffe realize not failing to acknowledge the importance of education and parents is hurting him?
What do you think about that, Don? You're the comms person.
Okay. Do I think
what are they thinking?
Do I think he realizes it? Yeah, I think to some level he does. But that's one thing you've got to understand about leftists is they don't ever reverse course. They're not going to prove. Yep. They're not going to admit they were wrong. They're blaming the American people now for the supply chain issues. They blame the American people for everything now, which is a really bad strategy. But you always know that a leftist, whether they realize something or not, it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they don't see the polling. It's not that they don't have the same data we all have. It's just not in their DNA to go, okay, look, I was wrong. This is obviously a bigger issue and more important, and I need to listen to people and blah, blah, blah. They're never going to do that. They're always going to double down. So
could not agree more. That is so true. I mean, it's just so true. And you know what, though? You got to admire them for it. Mm-hmm. Because on some level, it's not that you got to admire them for totally ignoring people when this is supposed to be a self-governing society. Yep. They know what their base wants.
Yep.
They know what their base wants, and they focus on keeping them happy before the media or
as a messaging guy, I appreciate it. I'm glad they do that because I can always count on that. Count on that, and we can shift our strategy and talk a different way, and we know that they're going to stick to their thing. So I really appreciate it. It makes my job easier.
I didn't even think of that, but I'm not a comms guy,
Stay in your lane.
Although I use what I collect to obviously it was so obvious in the poll what we were seeing. Glenn, what are you doing? Go after the Loudoun County Board of Education. What the hell? And he did after a while. Never you're signing a non-disclosure agreement so you can read the curriculum that your students or your children are going to learn.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be shocked if Loudoun goes like Youngkin by 5 or 3. I wouldn't. And if it does, it's over. I mean, it's it. I mean, that's that is Fox News' +8. Like Loudoun by 5. If that happens, we're going home early that night, buddy. I don't really care what they say about Fairfax. You don't have the votes. Just stop. You can't write them in as fast as you need them. It's over. Sorry, Mark. Go home. Loudoun has gone Republican. Go home. It's over. All right, go ahead.
So Anonymous how much of the margin of victory to carry the other statewide offices, the House delegates,
Yeah.
and the education issue is so in the forefront. How much is that going to be nationwide, i.e., CRT, masking the kids, vaccines, etc.?
Wait, because
Okay.
I'm losing grip. The Herring race, the district attorney. I mean, the state district attorney general. Excuse me. That was not supposed to be close. He had a big lead a few weeks ago, and I was like, it's not even point polling this thing. It's over. But it was there. That lead is gone. It was now 1 point as of yesterday and falling considerably. So it's possible that if Youngkin is surging like really to the point of like a Fox News poll kind of margin, he could drag the attorney general right over the finish line with him, because I don't see an 8-point differential. Don, do you? Do you see them going to 8 by 6 or 8 for the Republican governor, but then electing the Democratic attorney general? No, not happening. Not in our polling. What we are seeing is this side's on their side, this side's on their side, and independents are doing what they're doing. And if I just don't see this massive, because in the other polling, the crossover support was big for Republicans. That's gone now. And Spencer from Emerson has that as well. It's like not even 1 point. If you look at it, it's like 0.8. So that's not good. And Suffolk too, I think, had it very close.
I think typically you won't see more than a 3-point swing on something that's down ballot from the top. From the top.
That would be significant.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then what was the second thing? How much does this affect national?
National.
Yeah.
What does it mean nationally?
So is this going
Huge.
This issue with education going to be at the forefront nationwide?
It's huge. Virginia catapulted the issue of critical race theory and the issue of transgender bathrooms if Republicans have the cojones to grab onto them.
Amen.
Virginia, even if Youngkin, well, I don't want to say it, but no matter which way this goes, this race should not be at this point right here. This should have been, McAuliffe was a former Democratic governor who left office with supposedly a 56 or 54% approval rating. This should have been over. It should have been over a month ago. And Youngkin really changed the dynamic. And he allowed the Republican base, man, I'm telling you, to come Wednesday, if Youngkin is the governor-elect of Virginia, this is a whole new ballgame. I'm telling you. And it's not just because... It's because that will tell other Republicans, oh, holy hell, this worked. Those crazy, the moderates that can't stand you, they're going to go, oh my God, the crazy base was right. We got to latch on to this issue. They won Virginia with it.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do. And they're going to start picking up the phone and call guys like me and ask them how the hell they talk about the issue. Because they're clueless idiots who don't know how to instinctively talk about something. Like a Donald Trump can, like a Ron DeSantis, or even someone like a Chris Christie. They know how to instinctively speak about things. Some people are really gifted politicians, and some are not. And unfortunately for the Republican Party, they do not have a slew of naturally gifted politicians. They need to have their bend over, Marco, Daddy, get the spot you missed, Oh, speaking of which, it's 12:57. Can I play that, or is it too dirty for the show?
It may be fresh. How about locals?
All right, I'm gonna put something on locals, guys. I got a meme about Kamala that I gotta play. All right, but Laura's right. For YouTube and stuff, it may be a little bit too much. I will put it on locals. All right.
All right, come on.
I was dying.
Got questions. Let's do this.
All right.
Where is it? For Virginia, what's the bellwether county to watch for on Tuesday for 2022? What are the new bellwethers for the country? Seems like the old ones, Vigo, Juneau, are not as predictive.
They are. I would not let 2020 throw that off. They are absolutely predictive. 2020 is an anomaly, and everybody knows it. In Virginia, it's not that it's like he's got to win it, but I am looking at the margin in Loudoun County. That's it. Right off the bat, I'm going to see how much is he winning independents by, because he's going to. Glenn Youngkin's going to win independents. The only question is by how much. And then Loudoun, how well is he performing in Loudoun and the overall DC suburbs, which is why I worded it like that regionally for you guys, because Cuccinelli was at like 39 and he came very close, 39. I'm telling you, Youngkin's going to be in the low 40s in the DC suburbs. He's going to be. And if he is, it's a fight. You know what I mean? And if he's like at 44 or something, just go home. just go home. Just go home. It's over. I mean, that's how big of a difference. And those waves, I don't want people to get confused, Don. Maybe some don't know. Exit polls come in waves. They always are more pro-democratic. The first wave, you have to wait until the evening update. And then you'll know what's better, or at least, and they still suck, but then you'll know a much better idea. And that noon to 3, man, they always screw everybody. The 3 o'clock. Always screw everybody. I think it's intentional. It's designed to be that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, though, buddy. What do you think?
I think somebody asked this question about, is this a bellwether for 2022? I think a couple of weeks ago we got asked the question about that.
Yeah.
And I made the comment. I said I'd be a little careful about calling it a bellwether. I would say it's more of an indicator of kind of where things are moving and how they compare to what just happened, a year ago. But I think now I'm coming on board and saying this is a little bit more of a bellwether now. And I say that because of the issues that are involved. So they're pocketbook issues that are national issues. Even though Loudoun County was the epicenter of this CRT school board pushback, all these kind of things, it's become a national issue. It's happening all over the country. So
it blew up.
I totally think this is more of a bellwether than just an indicator at this point.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Go ahead. I'd agree.
Wants to know whether early voting was higher or lower compared from 17 to 20.
You can't make those comparisons because, it's far lower than 2020. But you can't make those comparisons because it's not just the difference in how much people do it and what we've changed with COVID. That's not it. There's a change that's why 2020 was so hard to compare to 2016, because there's a change in people's voting behavior, and Democrats are going to vote a lot less on election day, and Republicans are going to vote significantly weaker in early voting. That's why Florida screwed, like Nate Silver thinks he's so smart, the Slimer. That's why he's an idiot who realized he was wrong walking his poodle. But if he actually read our polling instead of smearing it, he would have known that was going to happen, because we were asking, how do you intend to vote? Which one applies to you? The good old Gallup way. And the change in voting behavior among Republicans in Florida was significant. And Don, you'll hear me on this. You can back me up. Republicans won absentee ballot voting in Florida 4 years. For years. That was the in-person early was Democrat dominated, absentee Republicans dominated, and then election day Republicans dominated. So Democrats would have, well, not dominated, but won more. Democrats would try to ring up the numbers on early in-person voting because they knew those absentee ballots would come in and flood them, and then they would probably lose election day. So they would have to get just a little more, and that was the game. And last time, Don, almost nobody Republican, they voted in person early, but only right before the election, like the weekend before the election. Miami-Dade only blew up that Monday, remember? And then it was like, whoa, how many Republicans went to the polls today? And people, by the time they realized it was too late. And then the election day turnout was ginormous. And then that's what swamped. And same thing happened in North Carolina. Republicans usually did better in early voting, and everybody was like, oh, the state's gone, Joe Biden's going to win it. And then there was a ginormous election day turnout. So it's hard. That's why I always warn people about reading the early vote tea leaves. It's not sometimes it's apples to oranges.
But I think really all you have to look at is, what was the fear level in November of last year? What was the fear of people interacting with other people? And, they were just scared, right? So there was a lot more scared people. Now people turn on college football game, turn on the World Series. Look at people just jam-packed into stadiums. People are like way over this Fauci fear factor. And I think that's going to impact. So I think a lot more people are going to go back to a more traditional in-person voting. And I think we'll see that play out as well.
All right, let's get to are they small or short? Because it's 103, 104 now.
Yeah, just before you go, have Don tell them where somebody is looking for an interview that they could not find. The Spartacus interview.
The Spartacus letter? What happened with that interview?
And
so there was like a disagreement, right?
Well, no, we did a little bit more vetting, and it just didn't play out yet. We're still kind of working on some things to where we might do something
just making sure you get it right.
Yeah. We don't want to put something on and present it as something that maybe it isn't. And we found some information out, and so my apologies on that. But we have gotten through to. So there is a possibility we will do something here in the future. Spartacus
wants. You got to make sure it's right, my friend. You got to make sure it's right.
Yeah, you do. And we did our due diligence on it. And so I'll give you some updates on that. Maybe tomorrow I might have some more details on that on my show.
Cool. All right. What else we got?
All right. So this one, Jamie wants to know, Curtis has been running an amazing campaign in New York City against Adams, and he's been smoking Adams in the debate. Any reliable pollsters that have polled in New York City?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. New York City gets internally polled like crazy. I'll look and see if I can dig something up. Maybe I can get my hands on something. But public polling in New York City stopped the day Rudy Giuliani left office. He handed Michael Bloomberg. I'm serious, like real, he handed Michael Bloomberg the keys with that endorsement, and that was it. Bloomberg was popular. It was never really a race. Nobody really cared. Wiener was going to shake things up. A lot of people thought he was going to run. Wiener was going to shake. But in the end, they did some polling there. Nowadays, like they did the Democratic primary polling, but none of it was really good. Did you notice? And none of it was really close at all. New York is a difficult place to poll. It's very difficult. But yeah, I wish I did, but I'll try to see if I can get my hands on somebody's internals. I'll poke around. I know someone I can call to see, and I'll try. Okay. All right, go ahead, Don. What do you give yourself? Tell everybody where you can find yourself and what we're going to be doing tomorrow. By the way, I got to send you all those graphics ahead of time instead of last minute like I do all the time. Damn.
So DonSmithShow.locals.com. That's where we're at on locals. A lot of really cool stuff coming up. Tomorrow I'm on every Saturday at noon Eastern time. Tomorrow we've got Lee Greenwood. We've got Autry.
Very cool.
Yeah, we got Autry Pruitt. So Autry. Autry is New Journey PAC, which was founded by Bo Snerdley from Rush Limbaugh. Those guys, I don't know if you've heard this, and nobody's talking about it, so it's a really important interview. They're being deplatformed when it comes to monetization. So their business is being their PAC is being shut down, and they support conservative values. He does a lot of great stuff. It's one of the good PACs out there, and they're being shut down because they're considered riffraff. Of course, that's because they're conservatives. Autry's an amazing guy, and this is big news. So, we see all the big tech censorship stuff. Well, this is big tech censorship shutting down the ability of conservatives to raise money. So, really important interview, and he's a great guy. I love Autry. I've known him for a number of years, and just an amazing guy. So, looking forward to that. Of course, we will have you on with some graphs sent ahead of time, and
and you know what? We should do the election stuff too that I didn't even get to. Like election reform stuff. I didn't even get to it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then Peter Hoosie's on the program. But I also want to kind of put a shout out here too. We've got some really cool stuff coming up in the pipeline. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have Peter Navarro on the show. Really looking forward to that. He's going after Dr. Fauci. He was the guy in the room when Dr. Fauci was first brought in and hired, and he's got some amazing things to talk about. We've also got General Michael Flynn coming up, pre-tape that next Thursday. We've got Mark Meadows, former chief of staff for President Donald Trump.
Very cool.
And that Lori Dew interview is actually going to be this Monday on General Paul Vallely's show, which is the Stand Up America U.S. show with MG Paul Vallely. That's every Monday at noon Eastern time. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But a lot of really cool stuff coming up. And
that's a lot of exciting stuff, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah, we're rocking it. And then some exciting announcements coming up campaign-wise. We've got two great candidates, and I know you know who they both are, getting ready to launch here within the next week.
I do.
And I'm excited to announce those because they are both great.
One of them, by the way, just goes to show you with this Kinzinger retirement announcement, that means he's in trouble too. They all know they're in trouble. And he actually may retire before the guy we're talking about even gets in. Because if Kinzinger is bouncing because he's done, then believe you me, he's in deep, deep trouble. And the family is not going to get embarrassed like that. You know that. They're not going to watch their fam get their stomped in. It's not going to happen. You will leave this rest. You will not hurt our name like that. I will not go down by 30 points. Shame our family. Oh, good stuff, my friend. All right. As always, thank you so much, buddy. I'll see you. Well, I'll talk to you later, but I'll see you tomorrow. All right.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody. Bye, Laura.
Tell Brenda. Give Brenda our best.
Love you guys.
Love you too. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Don. That's Don Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Always a pleasure every Friday to have him on. Shoot the you-know-what, answer some questions. That 2 hours went by super fast. Locals, I'll put this video I'm talking about on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Consider signing up if you haven't already. That's how, again, we were able to update this Virginia poll. I'm glad we did because we really caught some important movement, some important changes in the electorate and what is going on. We'll make some kind of an announcement about what we're going to do on Tuesday night. But in the meantime, I will be back on Real America's News at 5 p.m., I believe hosted by Steve Bannon, to talk about this poll in detail. I gave a bunch of graphics. We'll go down the line. Charlie Cook, I'm going to be on in about 20. Charlie Kirk, I'm going to be on in about, I'm sorry, I was thinking analytics. I'll be on Charlie Kirk's show in about 20 minutes. All right. And, keep an eye out on the Locals pin, and we'll update it to tell you whether or not you can catch me anywhere else. All right. May have something pretty cool, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. All right. They're all cool, but you know what I mean. All right. It is 1:11. I'm going to skate. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. As always, we love you. Have a safe weekend. See you soon.
Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit.